Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 3 of the CMU Sport Management Podcast. My name is Kyle Sandel. I am your host, and today I am joined by a very special guest, a professor in the CMU Sport Management program, Jen Eaton. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Doing all right. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate this whole thing that you're doing. I think it's going to help a lot of students, and so really appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Dr. Ballou recommended that he thought it would be a great idea to have you on, and I completely agreed.
So of course he did, yeah.
I think it'll be great to get perspective from you on everything because obviously Dr. Ballou you guys have different backgrounds and everything, so I think it'll be good to get a view from someone else that's in the program that is just differently. So the first thing I just want to ask you right off the bat is just, how is this semester going so far, teaching 119? Like, how is the first few weeks? What are we, 6 weeks now into the semester?
Yeah, week 6, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. I couldn't believe it. I was looking on my own course shell for the classes that I'm in for my PhD, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's week 6 already?
It's really weird. It's flown by. Yeah. It's already cold, so.
Exactly. I just, Dr. Mumford was in the hallway, and he said, how you doing? And I said, well, it's cold out. And he's like, come on, you're from Michigan. So,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's going good.
Mm-hmm.
A couple weeks ago, I did that career panel that you actually sat in on. So
that was really cool.
Yeah, thanks for that again. But yeah, it went really well, and just getting to know the students still and getting in the swing of things.
Yeah, I was a bit underqualified as part of that panel, but it was definitely cool to see everyone and all the experiences that they've gone through as well. Yeah, and I think that 119 is, like, I loved having 119. I had Nick Williams in class for that, and I think he does a great job teaching it, and I think that's awesome that you were teaching it as well because it's a creative class, I feel like, to kind of how you want to go about teaching it for all of the students and everything. So let's talk about, like, your background, I guess, starting off with that. So what was, like, one of the main reasons why you wanted to get into sport management in the first place? Or because I know you have, like, some family ties in the sport management as well. So did that play into it at all?
Yeah, so I guess when I was in high school, I really had no clue what I wanted to do.
Right.
I just knew that I loved sports. I had played sports my whole life. My dad coached football from, like, the time that I was born until I got into high school, and so I was pretty much raised on, like, the football field, played softball and basketball my whole life, and I loved sports. And actually, my sister started the program here. I think she graduated high school in 2012, around there, so 2013, 2014, around there, and so she started the program, and when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, she said, well, why don't you look into this? I knew that obviously I loved sports, thought that this would be a cool avenue, so she actually set me up a meeting with Professor Adler, who was her advisor at the time, and we talked over some things, and I thought, you know what the heck, try it out, and here we are.
Yeah, so that's definitely it's nice having an older person in your life that kind of gave you that advice going into this program. I think that
yeah, definitely
helps out a lot of people, especially when you don't know what you want to do. And if you are a person that enjoys sports, I mean, sport management is one of the key routes to go into with that. So, so when you were in college as in the sport management program versus now that you are a professor in this program, like, what do you think are some, like, major differences in the program, or at least the way, because obviously, like, there's might be faculty changes and everything, but just as far as how many people are in the program or how the program is taught? Like, what are some major differences that you've noticed?
Yeah, so I think the faculty hasn't really changed much, and I think that's a huge reason why, people love this program and students really want to give back to this program is because you're exposed to the same faculty a lot. And when I started, I had the same professors the whole way through, even until my master's program. Mm-hmm. So you make those connections and you make those relationships, and people really want to help out the sports management program because these professors are amazing and they will help you with whatever you need and things like that. And so the faculty side, not really much has changed except for I've joined, obviously.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, and then as far as, like, content or stuff goes, the 2 new classes, the Sports Analytics 2 class and then the Esports class those are the 2 new classes that I unfortunately did not have when I was an undergrad. But I did get to help teach the Sports Analytics 2 class with Dr. Ballou when I was a grad assistant. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like, it made up for it a little bit. But yeah, I think the 2 classes are really the only 2 differences since I've been a student.
That Sport Analytics 2 class is basically how I met you from Dr. Ballou. Like, I was in that class, and I really enjoyed that class. If you are currently a sport management student and you like stats and you're a stats nerd like myself, like, that is a super fun class to do. So when you're talking about joining what the differences in the program, What was kind of the transition from you like being a student to like, wow, I might actually have a chance to be a professor in this program someday? Or was that always a goal of yours?
No, it's actually couldn't have been further on my radar. I had
Okay.
absolutely no intent of being a professor when I started this program. I always like to preface that when my first day in class in 119 said I had no clue that I was going to be here.
Right.
It's actually kind of a funny story. It's kind of a long story, but I'll
Go for it.
I'll
Yeah.
try to shorten
We
it
have
for,
plenty of
for
time.
time's sake. But so when I started the undergrad program here, I thought I wanted to go into ticket sales. And it's obviously funny because that cannot be further from what I would want to do now.
Yeah.
All respect to the ticket sales people out there. I could never do it. But so I wanted to do ticket sales. And since my sister was in the program, I knew of Professor Adler's sports sales and marketing class. And I also knew that he did the project with the Pistons where you actually have to sell tickets. And so for those of you who don't know what the project is, he has a connection, or he connects with the Detroit Pistons, and their ticket sales department comes in, presents to the class, and then they ultimately, tell you, we want you to sell tickets for us. And you have to cold call people and things like that. I don't know if he's changed it any since I've graduated, but I've hated it. I did not do very well on the project, did not get a good grade, obviously, on the project. So ticket sales kind of flew out the door.
Right.
And so as I was going through my undergrad, I sort of decided that I really liked marketing, social media, things like that. And I had some experience in that, working for USA Softball and Mount Pleasant Parks and Recreation and things like that. And so I also had kind of wanted to lean towards the collegiate athletics route. And I had been told that if you wanted to sort of boost your resume for collegiate athletics, to go to grad school, get your master's degree.
Right.
And so I had heard some really good things about the master's program here. I loved CMU, obviously, had some really good relationships with the professors. So I thought, what the heck? And so in like September or August of 2019, I applied for the master's program here. And then in February of 2020, I got accepted. Then in March of 2020, I left for spring break. That was my senior year of undergrad. I left for spring break.
And that's COVID.
And I did not come back full time until like the following year. I think it was January of 21.
Okay.
When we started to come back to campus. So obviously the whole world got flipped upside down.
Right.
Athletics as a whole got flipped upside
Definitely.
down. Really had no idea what was going to happen with sports. You can't have spectators, so how are they going to get money? Things like that. Some of the kids that I graduated undergrad with, they had offers like in hand, and they got pulled because of
That's
COVID.
terrible.
Kids had to move across country. They couldn't find housing, things like that. So I kind of found myself in sort of like a good position where I could go back to grad school. I had gotten accepted. It was kind of a great time to go back to school because nobody knew what was going to happen. So I started the grad program, and then the first year of my grad program, I actually met with Dr. Mumford, and I think it was just to talk about his class or a project in his class or something like that. And we ultimately got on the topic of what I wanted to do after I graduated.
Right.
And so I mentioned some things of like marketing, social media, obviously. But then I also mentioned I had started to notice that statistics and analytics came pretty easy to me. And I noticed that it wasn't the same for a lot of the other kids in the classes that I was in. I did pretty well in 218 as an undergrad, and I was doing pretty well in the grad stats class at the time. And I also told him that this was the time I'd started to think about being a professor, higher ed, but it was just sort of like a fleeting thought.
Like, like a just in case type
Yeah, exactly.
thing, yeah.
It wasn't like any seriousness behind it, really. And it was actually the first time I think I told somebody, maybe higher ed would be kind of cool. And he suggested talking to Dr. Blue about being his teaching assistant and research assistant. And at the time, I really had no clue what those would involve. I didn't know that you could do that. I didn't know, especially, that you could get internship credit for the program.
Yeah.
And so, literally, as I was sitting out here in the Faust Hall parking lot to go back home for the night, I emailed Dr. Blue and asked him if we could set up a WebEx meeting to talk, because I think he was still in Kansas at the time, because everything was online.
Right.
So that night, I think it was actually before his class that night, we chatted. I told him my thoughts, and he sort of told me what he was thinking, and so we decided to go for it. And so for 2 years while I was doing the master's program, I was his teaching assistant and research assistant for the sports analytics classes. I helped with 218, obviously, and then when they started the sports analytics 2 class, I helped out with that, so that was pretty cool. And then some of his master's classes, like majority of the time, if he needed help with like technology things or things like that. So yeah, gained some really valuable experience. Learned from the best. I always say all these professors here are great and have always helped me with whatever I needed. And then as I was graduating my last semester here, Dr. Blue was actually the division director, and he contacted me and told me that there was a couple classes open to teach the following years, and asked if I wanted to stay on. So I kind of talked it over with my family, and then also people like Dr. Blue and Dr. Mumford, and kind of came to the conclusion that as a 25-year-old being, given the opportunity to be a professor is kind of, unheard of.
Rare,
and something I couldn't pass up. So decided to go for it, and now we're here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Shout out to Dr. Mumford and Dr. Blue
Exactly.
for, helping you get that opportunity.
Yeah.
So did you and Dr. Blue have a really close relationship prior to all of this, or did it just develop over the time?
I think it just developed over time. I knew we were pretty close as I was an undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
Just not super close like we are now, obviously, but sort of on I would use him as a reference, and he would help me with if I ever needed a contact or advice or things like that. But really the relationship we have now started to develop as I was his teaching assistant and research assistant in grad school.
Which is awesome, because you guys are, you're like left and right, you guys are really close now.
Yeah, we're best buds.
Yeah. So you mentioned a few of your experiences in between there, working with USA softball,
Mm-hmm.
and you said Mount Pleasant recreational.
Yep.
Okay. So how were those experiences?
I think they're really valuable. I think the USA softball one in particular, working, from sun up to sundown a lot of times for tournaments and things like that, really sort of opened my eyes to the sports world,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what you're getting yourself into,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then Parks and Rec was a great experience. I think it gave me Mount Pleasant is a big city compared to where I grew up,
Compared to the cities around here.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Compared to where I grew up in Beaverton, it's a pretty big city. So, but it's also kind of got that small town feel, and so you really
Definitely
cultivate those relationships when you're seeing people out in the community and you're seeing people out in the programs and things that you provide. And I always said that sports is hard. You're working 12 hours a day a lot of the time, and then you'll work till 11 p.m. and then come back at 6 a.m. the next day. But when you see a kid at a program with a smile on his face, or you see a family that's going to have those memories forever, it's really worth it in the long run. So,
and at the end of the day, you're still working in sports.
Yep, exactly.
Which is the ultimate goal.
Yep,
so.
working around what you love.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So you talked about, you made the decision to go into the grad program, and it was something that you originally didn't know if you wanted to do or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, and obviously you've gave a great tip of advice for students that are thinking about joining the grad program. It clearly worked out for you.
Mm-hmm.
So what is some other advice, or at least information, you can give to students that maybe are considering going into the grad program or aren't, and you can convince them to?
Yeah, so I think grad school is hard. It's a lot of work, and so it's something that you really have to sit back and think about that you really want to do. Because if it's something that in the long run you don't really want to do and you don't think is going to help you, then obviously I've seen kids in my cohort that dropped out after one semester and things like that. So it's something that you really have to do. But if it is something, or really want to do, but if it is something that you really want to do, go for it. And especially in a program like this, I think this program does a really good job of sort of giving you that broad overall experience of what you're going to need in sports, and also giving you that specific hands-on experience as well. So my class planned, I think, 3 disc golf events, and we were, in charge of starting the disc golf event from start to finish and doing everything involved in that. And then the statistics and analytics stuff, obviously. And then if you are thinking about possibly higher ed, the research aspect of the program is really well. They've split it into, quantitative. You have a quantitative class and you have a qualitative class and things like that. So really just that broad overview, or that broad overall experience you're going to need, this program does really well with. And also the cohort aspect. You start the first class with a group, usually grad schools or master's programs, usually 15 to 25 people. So you start your first class with that group of people, and you go through the whole program with those people. And you're spending 3 hours a night, 3 days a week with those people for 2 years. And so you really get close, and you really develop a lot of good relationships. I have lifelong friends and some of the people in my grad program. So that's one of the great aspects of it, too.
I was just going to ask you that. Not only, are those people still in your life, basically, but clearly,
definitely.
They are. Which is awesome, because those people get to go through the same experience as you. You guys have a lot in common, and you go through a lot of the same things, have a lot of relations. So those are key relationships that you can hang on to forever.
Yep, definitely.
So with all of these things that we've talked about that you are in, and obviously now a professor here at Central Michigan, you have a new experience going on at down south, or not south, east in Eastern Michigan.
Yep.
So how is it? Kind of explain me to that, how that is. What is that all about, and how have you liked it so far?
Yeah, so I'm currently in the Educational Studies PhD program at Eastern, and I'm a marketing graduate assistant for the University Recreation. So it's been pretty interesting. I think I took all last year off of school, and I was just, teaching and instructing and things like that. So I told myself if I took any much longer off, I probably wouldn't go back. And so after some, pushing and encouragement from people like Dr. Blue and Dr. Mumford say, just do it, just get it over with.
Yeah.
I decided to, go back this year, and it's been really cool. I'm starting to get the hang of it. The classes are, PhD programs are a lot different than normal classes, so getting the hang of that and the structure of things. And then also not only like the classes and the work, but moving to a completely new city and things like that where you don't know anybody has been pretty crazy. But I've had like a great support system down there. One of my bosses, Michelle, has been really lovely and really helpful and helped me with whatever I've needed. And obviously my family and things like that. And then I also have, people that I can come back to here every Wednesday and talk to and things like that. Like the professors here, and they've gone through PhD programs, so they know what I have to expect and what I'm gonna go through.
That's
and
nice.
So being able to pick their brains and ask them questions and things like that too has been really helpful.
So how has it been trying to balance that with now being a professor teaching 119?
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of free time right now, but you just got to get into like a routine and get the set things down. Like you have to get this done and this done. Being very organized and time management has come into play. I know Professor Williams will probably like the mention of time management, but so time management has just been a huge thing for me, and sticky notes, planners, just being organized and getting in a routine has been the big thing.
It reminds me of the time management project in Dr. Williams' class with the writing down your whole entire day and everything.
Yep.
So what is, going back to PES 119, like what has been your favorite part about teaching that class so far? Like it can be with students, with the material, like what has been your favorite part about it?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of broken down in like two different aspects. And I think the first one, like 119 specifically, that's the first class in the program. So kind of like being that, welcome to the program, this is, and then on my side, I have the unique aspect where I can say, this was my experience, this is what I saw, this is who you're going to meet, this is who you're going to talk to, things like that. If you're interested in this,
which is super helpful for students.
This is my advice if you're looking in this route or this route. And as a former student and a fairly recent former student, knowing the intricacies and things about the program has been really helpful. And also just introducing them to people, and like that panel the other week, introducing, giving them the opportunities that I was provided as a student. I always said one of the main reasons that I ultimately decided about going into higher ed is because professors here really provided me with whatever opportunity they could in order for me to succeed. And so if I could provide that for my students, that's an amazing thing. And so really being able to provide them with those opportunities, and then just, helping them out with whatever they need and being there for them is the big aspect of it.
Yeah, I loved, I don't know if you have any like special fun things you do in 119, because I know, Dr. Williams had I forget exactly what he called it, but when you talk in class, basically, when you incorporate in class, like you get the points or the stars or whatever.
The helmet
sticker.
Yep.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really fun part about 119, and you kind of mentioned it, like it being the introduction class. Like it's just fun to be able to kind of have to go through take in all the new information about the program, and it's nice that you as a former student have the ability to give the best information about the program because you just went through it. So I think that's really nice. So if you are a 119 student, I hope you're watching this, because maybe you can get some extra helmet stickers from Jen for watching this. So
I did take Nick's helmet sticker ideas. So,
okay, perfect. Yeah.
I asked him, I was like, is it okay if I do the helmet stickers? He's like, of course. So,
and I think it's cool because then they can, other students that might have him in class, like they can talk about how they compare and everything.
Yep,
so
definitely.
I think that's awesome. Is there anything else that you want to go over on this podcast that I didn't really mention that you feel like is a need to go through? I feel like we've touched everything that I planned for. So.
I think so too. Just get out there, experience new things. If you're an incoming freshman and you're in 119 and you're in my class, you probably are getting sick of this, but get out of your comfort zone. Try new things. You never know what you're going to like. As I was sitting in 119, I had no idea. I would have laughed in your face if you would have told me I was going to be a professor.
Right.
So try new things. You never know what you're going to like. Experience as much as you can while you're in this environment, while you're in college, and it'll probably pay off in the long run. So
I think that's great advice for all of your, not just your students, but everyone in general that is in the program. So thank you so much for joining me. I thought this was a really good conversation. And thank you guys for listening to episode 3 of the CMU Sport Management Podcast.